Just when you thought it was safe to watch videos again on the internet comes Tales from Someplace Besides the Garage.
Hey guys, happy 2020. Sounds very futuristic to me. You have to forgive me for being a little bit low energy. I think I have bronchitis. And of course, I get it at a time when no doctors are available. I went to urgent care today to see what they could do, and they don't take my insurance. So I have to, I guess, wait until my doctor's office is open again. So I don't have a lot of volume to speak with. My lungs are killing me. It's been a while since I did a video, and I was trying to do one before 2019 ended, kind of do a post-Christmas thing. Didn't happen, of course. So here we are, the first day of the new year, the first evening of the new year. I'm starting off sick, not a great way. Thought I'd just show a few things that I got for Christmas for lack of anything else to talk about. And all music related, I promise, leaving out the other stuff so that this can't be a typical 6-hour video. Where do I start? All this stuff is things I asked for. Nobody's has any idea what my tastes are in my family, so they would never go out and buy these things for me. I asked for and received the Dave Gilmour box set, the Live at Pompeii. It's another live album of his. I don't know, it's his 19th live album in like 4 years, and a live DVD or Blu-ray of the concert. I haven't listened to the music yet, and I haven't watched the concert. The reason I wanted this box set, actually, unless I needed to hear the 90th live version of Wish You Were Here, which is a nice song, but it's been killed by being played so much. The 150th live version of Money, and the 200th live version of Comfortably Numb. I mean, honestly, how many times are you going to do these to death? Live stuff has all been done to death. The only new things live-wise are the things from his album Rattle That Lock, which was the tour that he was supporting the album with. Still, that's not... I have Rattle That Lock. I don't even listen to that much. The reason I wanted the box set is simply because it's the only place to get... There's a set... on the second DVD or Blu-ray in the set is a really, really nice documentary. It's a 72-minute documentary done, I guess, a couple years ago with David Gilmour. Tons of interviews with him. And my favorite thing, and the reason why I wanted the box set was basically for this documentary. It's really the whole reason I even asked for this. I don't think I would have bothered otherwise, really. I'm not sure. And the documentary is fantastic. It talks about Gilmour's career and interviews him. To me, the real reason I wanted it, the meat and the potatoes kind of the documentary, there's a lot of footage of Gilmour on his houseboat. If you know Gilmour, you know the whole houseboat story. If you don't, Gilmour bought a houseboat back in the late 80s and moored on the River Thames, where it still is moored, and a very large houseboat. I mean, I'm sure there's kitchen in there and bedrooms and bathrooms, I'm sure. I haven't seen any of that. But what he did is he converted it to a recording studio. Now, to me, I can watch a documentary that's 8 or 10 hours long if it all takes place in a recording studio. That's my thing. And to be honest, I want to live on that houseboat. I want that houseboat to be mine. I want Dave Gilmour to leave it in his will to me so I can go there and live there and never leave. I'm not sure if they have grocery delivery in the UK, but if they do, I would have my groceries delivered there and I would never leave. I guess you can get your mail sent to the houseboat if it's moored in the same spot. So you have your mail sent there and your Amazon packages and you know, all your books and your CDs in your order. And you've got a recording studio built into your house. I don't see any reason to leave. I love anything to do with that houseboat. Anytime, you know, you see any kind of Pink Floyd, Dave Gilmour documentary, it's in there. This one probably has more footage of it than I've seen anywhere else. So that's worth getting the whole big fat box set for. I really am so about it. Like I said, I've had this, it's days, it's a week after Christmas already. I still haven't listened to the live stuff or watched the live DVD. But I did watch that documentary, and I'll probably end up watching the documentary again before I even give this a single listen. I did finally put the music in my computer. I listened to all my music at home in the computer because I got decent speakers hooked up to the computer. So any new CD I buy, boom, boom, goes right in the computer. That's where I listen to it from. I never actually play my CDs anymore. They don't actually get technically spun. I get a new CD, plop it in the drive, copy it into my computer, and listen to it from there. So that's my big box set. Onto some other things. Now, of course, I asked for all of these. Volker Kriegel, the great late German jazz guitarist. Sorry about the lighting, guys. I can't. I have a lamp. You can see in the back there. If I turn that lamp on, it's so bright you don't see it. You don't even see me. You just see white. So I can't get a happy medium here. I do have a lamp right here over my head, which is the same one as that one right there that you see, but the electric fizzled out and there's a short, so I don't have any electricity. I should have electricity right over my head, which I don't, which would make viewing this a lot easier, I'm sure. Volker Kriegel, German jazz guitarist, passed away a number of years ago. All of a sudden, just in the last, I guess it was within the last year, 2019, they did a massive reissue campaign. And I talked about this album before, and I still don't know how to pronounce it. Schon Aussichten. It's German, and I don't know it. I'm guessing it's German. I have this album already. I showed it. This is the Digipack reissue. I like Digipacks. A lot of people don't like them. I can understand why they don't like them. If they get, jewel case has the booklet inside the plastic case. So if the plastic case gets scuffed, you can just replace it and the booklet's intact. These are more like albums, the Digipacks are more like albums. So if it gets scratched, you're kind of screwed because, the whole cardboard on the outside, there's no insert and there's really nothing protecting it. But for old folks like me, it's a little bit like reliving the past. It's the closest thing to having an album. And I have this album, so why did I ask for it again? Well, because wouldn't you know it, and they did a nice job with the altering the version of it. I mean, if you looked at the old version, you could tell the old version from the new version. There are 3 additional tracks. Of course, they stuck bonus tracks on here, so I had to buy it again, and they're really excellent. It's about 21 new minutes of music recorded in 1982 for a film and previously not released. And the rest of the album was recorded in 1983. So the bonus material's pretty much from the same period. Nice album. I don't have a lot of Volker Kriegel solo albums. I have to correct that. And the amount of reissues that they did, it's a shame. They shouldn't do them all at once, though. I think it spoils it in a way. Because you're scampering. Which one do I pick up first? But they reissued a lot of his albums, and pretty much they reissued all the ones that I have. There's one double record set that's interesting that's entirely comprised of pieces that had never been released before, and it's a 2-record set, a 2 CD set. And I think it was music made mainly for commercials and things like that because it's a lot of short tunes. That's probably the next one I'm going to pick up because I don't have any of that material. But this one, I just liked, actually this whole album with the bonus tracks is up on YouTube, which is where I heard it, which is that's the thing that made me say, I got to get this because that 21 minutes of extra material that I don't already have is that good. So that's the thing that kind of made me push to go get it again, even though I have the original album. Different musicians support him, different bass players, drummers, keyboard players, but I had kind of forgotten. Eberhard Weber plays bass on one track, I think. It's so dark I can't even read the credits. I got it right in front of me. And I know, and something else I had forgotten, the late great drummer, American drummer, Mike DePasqua, who I didn't recall had ever worked with Volker Kriegel. Eberhard Weber, I know, was friends for a long time with Volker Kriegel. They both lived in Germany and came from Germany. I didn't realize that the old American drummer, Mike DePasqua, played with Volker, and I think probably only on this album. He plays on 2 tracks only. And even though I had the album previously, or I still have the old CD, I'd completely forgotten that Mike DePasqua was on here. And it was from his busy period, which is about 1983. Mike disappeared not long after that. He basically retired from business. He had a real busy late 70s, early 80s, but by the mid-80s he had retired from playing music. And I know 83, I think, was the same year he did the, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the same year he did the Adelhard Reudinger album by the bass player. Adelhard Reudinger, that was on ECM Europe label. And he was playing in Jan Garbrick's group. And I think when he left Jan Garbrick's group is when he retired from music. So it was nice to revisit this again and to realize that forgotten thing that Mike DePasqua actually plays on this. Metro, a fusion band I actually like, I love. This is the last album. I think it's 7 albums. I have all their albums. This one took me about 2 years to get. Amazon was listing that they had it available, and when I ordered it off of Amazon like 2 years ago, they said, well, we're having trouble getting it, we'll keep trying, and this went on for probably about 6 months, and eventually they said, sorry, we can't get it. Why? Because it's on this tiny little label. I think it's Jazzline. It's a German-only label, and eventually I had to go the route of getting it off of eBay from a German record store, basically. So this is the hardest to get Metro album. I'm pretty sure all of the other Metro albums, I believe, came out on American labels, even though the labels are small and they might be out of print now. A lot of those early albums, at least they initially were easier to get. This one is not, and this was, I think, the last thing they did. I think this was their last album. Of course, now, Metro was Mitchell Foreman, keyboard player, the great German jazz drummer Wolfgang Hafner. Metro is the group that introduced me to Hafner. I had him as a sideman on other albums, but didn't even realize it until I really started paying attention to Hafner's contribution to Metro. He didn't do a lot of writing for the band, but he did do some. And every time I'd listen to one of their albums and I would pick out like a favorite song, let me see who wrote that. And the 3 primary members of Metro wrote all the music. Chuck Loeb, the late Chuck Loeb, guitarist, being the 3rd member. And I would look, and always my favorite tracks on the albums would be the one track maybe that was written by Wolfgang Hafner. And I'm like, this guy's good. He's not just a drummer. He's a good writer, too. They didn't play a lot of his work. They didn't record a lot of his works, but they're all gems. So, of course, from there, I got Wolfgang Hafner's solo albums, which he's done some incredible stuff. He's done, like, electronic kind of jazz and totally acoustic albums, so he really can play the whole gamut. And he composes. He's a hell of a musician. So, Metro, which I'm guessing is no more nowadays because of Chuck Loeb's passing, was basically Chuck Loeb, Mitchell Foreman, Wolfgang Hafner, and a revolving door of bass players. They had a different bass player on every album, with one exception. Victor Bailey played, I think, on 2 of their albums. Pretty sure it was Victor Bailey. And Anthony Jackson played on one of their albums. They had a different bass player for all their albums, including this one. Now, this one was particularly nice because it's the only time that they played and recorded. This was recorded in Germany, by the way, with the WDR Big Band. So there's no new tracks on here, but these are very, very interesting re-recordings of 9 tracks from various earlier Metro albums throughout their career. I think they started in '94, and these are orchestrated. So the tunes are, and I tell you, the guy that did the orchestrations for it did an incredible job. And the band was very generous because, as you would guess, the WDR big band has a lot of horns in it. So the guys in Metro actually let the horn players solo a lot of times instead of the Metro band members. And it really makes the versions really different and worthwhile listening. It's just not another version of a song they've already recorded. I can remember there's a long trombone solo in one track. There's a couple tracks that have long saxophone solos. And there's one that's really great that has a very long flute solo. And of course, none of those horn players are members of Metro. They're guest members of the WDR big band. And it's fantastic that the guys in Metro let them stretch out like that and let the horn players have some of those solos. And like I said, the orchestrations for the pieces are incredible. The guest bass player, you would call it, on this album, because they have a revolving door of bass players, is Nicholas Fizman, who I love this guy. I love him because he was in Charlie Mariano's band. He was playing with Charlie Mariano in the early 80s. One of the albums I put up on my Cosmic Pickle page was an album by the Charlie Mariano band recorded. I want to say, I don't remember now. I think in the early 80s. And Nicholas Fizman was the bassist on that album. And it's just a quartet, just bass drums, keyboards, and Charlie Mariano on sax. And that's where I kind of fell in love with Nicholas Fizman's playing then. So I was really thrilled to see, I'm pretty sure he's German. And I guess because they recorded this in Germany and because they don't have a regular bass player, they invited him in, which is great. By the way, Nicholas Fizman actually plays a little bit of guitar too, not on this album, but he plays guitar as well. That Charlie Mariano album that I posted, I think it's Plum Island, I think is the name of it. I know there's a song on there called Plum Island. Also has a guitar solo on it that's totally uncredited, and I found out later it was Nicholas Fizman, the bass player, that played that guitar solo on that album. So this is nice to have because it kind of almost completes my Metro collection. I have all the albums they did as a leader. There is one album that's a multi-artist live album. Various jazz bands recorded, I think it's only in Germany, in various clubs in Germany. And this, really, really obscure CD came out that has 3 or 4 different bands on there. One of them is Metro, and there's 2 tracks by Metro on this live in concert album, which I don't have, which is really hard and expensive to get. That's the only official Metro material that I don't have, though I do have all their albums that they did under really their own name as leaders. I think this is the 7th one. Good album. Very interesting. If you know the pieces, it's really interesting to hear them with the big band stuff added to it. And the Tangerine Dream. If you're familiar with the group, Autumn in Hiroshima. This is a fairly heavy subject matter, even though it's all instrumental. Back in around 2008, 2010, somewhere in that period, Tangerine Dream did a 5 CD series that came out over the course of a few years. All instrumental, but supposedly all with the same concept in mind about the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and a real person's story that was there at the time, supposedly recreated in music. And the events that happened to this guy's life, and it's a true story. But of course, there's no lyrics. And I had 4 of the albums. It's a fairly heavy subject matter, and I guess if you didn't know that listening to the music, you would just listen to it and like it or not like it, whatever. But when you know the background of it, and it's about the bombings and the aftermath of the bombings, and the glimmer of hope that eventually arises, it can be pretty heavy listening because there's a lot of slow, maybe mournful kind of music. reflective kind of music. And maybe you read into that because you know the story involved. If you just listen to it, you would just hear it as quiet music, you know. Now there are up-tempo things in there as well, but I think this series of albums probably has a little bit more of the quieter stuff because of the subject matter. And I had the other 4, and this was the last one. So I haven't listened to all 5 of the albums together. Pretty heavy listening, which would be over 5 hours of stuff. And I will one of these days, and probably soon I'll listen to the whole thing. And I've barely listened to this at all yet. I've hardly even got to it, believe it or not. So that was a nice to get. Finally having that. Now, I'm going to show you a movie. And you say, well, he's lost his mind. This has to do with music. All the Colors of the Dark. If you are a fan of Italian giallo movies, I don't have to say anything about this. If you're not, what the hell is giallo? Well, it's my favorite kind of movie. Came out of Europe, essentially a lot Italy, in the late 60s, early 70s, and it's kind of violent, very violent murder mysteries that fall into the horror category, though they don't involve supernatural stuff for the most part. But they're filmed and they're very bloody and violent, and it's not Agatha Christie, where everybody dies, but nobody bleeds in Agatha Christie, and there's never a messy crime scene. So these movies got really popular in Italy, but at that time, in the late 60s, early 70s, they were actually getting imported all over the place, including here in America. And it's my favorite kind of movie. And all my favorite movies come out of Europe. None of my favorite movies, and I have a few movies that I love that are American movies, but if you pick 200 of my favorite movies, there might be 3 of them that are American movies in there. Italy, Spain, Germany, France. These are where England. These are where my favorite movies all come out of, and TV shows for that matter. So I already had this on DVD. Sergio Martino's the director who made a whole series of these giallo movies, and I wanted to get it on Blu-ray because of the special features. Just like I got the Volker Kriegel album for that additional 21 minutes of music. This had like new interviews with the director who's still alive and stuff like that. You know, this movie's from 1972, I think. And a nice thing that's a limited edition too. I think it's the first 2,500 copies of this come with, and this is the reason I'm talking about it, the movie soundtrack. If you're a fan of these movies like I have been for decades, you notice, especially in Italy, that there's basically maybe like 4, maybe 5, but 4 composers that seem to have done all of the soundtracks for these movies. If you read the credits, you notice that the composer's name comes up repeatedly. Now, most of these movies I don't think had a big budget, even though, like in this case, Sergio Martino is a very good director. He knew how to make a very lush-looking movie. I don't think they had the budgets ever of American movies, but to me they look better. But it's preference. These in particular look really good. The Sergio Martino movies from the early 70s have a really nice look to them. And like I said, I don't think they had big budgets, but man, when you hear the music, they always have like full orchestras, big bands with horns, strings, vocalists. I mean, it's like they've got every musical instrument at their beck and call, so there must have been a sizable budget for the music. And this is no exception. Now, over the years, the soundtrack for this movie, All the Colors of the Dark is the American name. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Italian name. And I don't think it even translates. I think that the title in Italian is something completely different. But the soundtrack is fantastic. And, you know, for me anyway, it has some elements of easy listening. You know, there's strings. And there's the one thing that I love that I'm a sucker for that they don't really do anymore, but they did a lot in the 60s and 70s. And that's having the female vocalist singing wordless melodies, like you would sing a flute line or something like that. And I love that. You know, you have this wordless female singing all these, you know, various melodies, you know, in with the orchestra. And so there's a whole bunch of that. And, you know, I don't have the page up now. I had the page up before. Did I mention this comes with the soundtrack? I guess, yeah. I'm talking about the soundtrack that it came with. One of, I think it's at 2,500 copies or something like that. Forgive me, because I know I'm trying to prepare this in my mind and I'm not even sure what the hell I've already said. So it ranges from easy listening music to just like this, I don't say vocal chant, but there's some vocal only wordless pieces in there. And there's some pieces that are primarily just sitar, believe it or not. And it's really weird. It doesn't sound like it even came from the same movie. Now, the soundtrack album to this had come out on vinyl. I guess at the time it was released, and over the years there was a vinyl edition. And I don't know how long the vinyl edition was. Now, most movie soundtracks, there's not, you know, they reuse music a lot. So there's not a lot of music in a movie. There might be maybe 30 minutes of music. And the original vinyl came out, and it had whatever it had, 30 to 40 minutes worth of music. And I loaded this into my computer, the soundtrack on this. I know 77 minutes. And I'm like, the whole movie's 94 minutes long. This is 77 minutes of music is a lot. So there must be a lot of music that wasn't on the original album. And sure enough, there are. Now, I'm guessing that all of this music was recorded at the sessions. And then they decided afterwards what music to use. Maybe there's multiple versions of the same piece, but the versions are different lengths. And there's subtle differences in the versions. So it sounds like they just compiled everything that was recorded. So instead of just recording the needed 30 minutes worth of music, they recorded it seems like a whole bunch of different music, maybe, and decided after the fact what music to include in the movie soundtrack. And so I guess the original albums of soundtrack music were probably the music that was actually used in the movie. And with the CD stretching to 77 minutes, which is incredibly long for a single soundtrack for a 94-minute movie, there's a lot of music there, and a lot of stuff that I don't recall hearing in the movie, though there are multiple versions of maybe the same theme and stuff like that. Like I said, ranges from easy listening to these weird, I wouldn't say vocal chants, but there's vocal voice-only pieces here and there. Some things that occasionally sound even electronic at times, and a couple sitar pieces, and there's just some, you know, it's weird because listening to the soundtrack on there, it actually sounds like you just mixed in tracks from 3 or 4 different albums. One of them does sound like a movie soundtrack, especially when you have the easy listening stuff with the female vocals, and then you go to a solo sitar album and some just oddball music, and it really sounds like, you know, you just made a mixtape from different artists and different albums and threw it in together. It's really quite a trip. And that was nice because I didn't realize this was going to come with the CD. And so that was a nice bonus. My last thing that I'm going to show is a book. You say, oh my God, he's lost his mind. The book's not a movie, not music, not a CD. Here's a book. Written by Tony Ashton. Nobody knows who Tony Ashton is, probably. Tony Ashton was a real eccentric British singer who only lived to be age 55. I think he got cancer. Died in 2001. He was going to write a series of 3 books about events in his life. Maybe not so much an autobiography. And this one he talked about Cermatis, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Cermatitis, which was an area in Switzerland that his band, when he was struggling, struggling looking for gigs and things like that, he was offered a gig in this place in Switzerland that he had never been to, only to find out that it's kind of on a hill and automobiles aren't allowed up there. And he had a big Hammond B3 organ, and the band's equipment, you know, drums, bass, the amplifiers, which had to have been hauled up by a horse-drawn carriage, believe it or not, to where the club was, where they were playing. So it's a lot of tales, and it is biographical, but it's a lot of tales, I guess, I just started reading it, involving this area of Switzerland and his relationship to it, which he loved this place and would vacation there, actually, and continue to play there throughout the rest of his life. Now, Tony Ashton is not the kind of music you would ever expect me to listen to, and it's probably the only time I listen to, what would you call it, like R&B, but not the way people know R&B now. R&B was originally stuff like Ray Charles, like that. Okay, he was probably influenced by Ray Charles, certainly that type of music. He was a Hammond organ player, primarily a keyboard player and a vocalist. He had a really gruff, rough singing voice. And he played kind of that Ray Charles R&B stuff, that type of music, and he wrote. The bands that he was in through the years were probably only really known in England. I don't really think anybody in America, I don't even think he had a cult following in America. I don't think I'm not aware of him ever touring or playing over here. He also briefly played in that group Family, that British group, and a lot of people seem to have gone through Family over the years. He played with John Lord from Deep Purple, not in Deep Purple, but John Lord's solo projects. Got a real kind of gruff voice. He was a real character. He's one of those British eccentrics that I tried to think of somebody to compare him to that was American, and I couldn't think of anybody. One guy came to mind because he liked to drink. Tony Ashton was definitely a fan of drinking. At least he may have actually stopped toward the end of his life, but most of the time he was quite a big fan of drinking, and he would make fun of it in his songs as well, and let it be known. Interesting guy, real British eccentric. I was trying to think of somebody to compare him to that Americans would know, and I came up with Tom Waits, but then I realized, well, Tom Waits kind of built an image for himself, and he kind of plays into the image, where when you see Tom Waits, and a lot of times you see him on TV and stuff like that, he's playing at that image that he built for himself, whereas guys like Tony Ashton didn't really create an image for themselves. They were real eccentrics. Viv Stanshall, if you're familiar with who Viv Stanshall is, another British guy, I put him in that group. Like, these two guys who were, late 60s, early 70s, real British eccentric musicians that never got beyond a cult following. I understand Roy did have, Tony Ashton did have one hit single in England, but it was kind of like a one-hit wonder thing that a lot of people would know that song but not know anything about the band. So he was included. By the way, included in this book is a DVD. And a DVD is maybe 30 minutes long, but it has, and you have to get it from England. I ordered it on Amazon, but it's one of those things that I asked for. But I said to my sister who ordered this for me, you better order this at least a month in advance because it's coming from England. And it took about 3 weeks. Not cheap, but it's a hardcover, so it should last. Comes with a DVD, 30 minutes, about 32 minutes, I think, of previously unreleased video. So you get to see Tony with his band Ashton, Garner, and Dyke, which was the band that he recorded 3 albums with in the 69, 70, 71 time period. There's 3 live songs recorded in 1970. I remember, I think it's black and white. Pretty sure it's black and white. But you get this, it was nice because I had only heard Tony Ashton. I had heard him sing. Most of the things that I've heard him on, he wasn't the only keyboard player, so I never could really hear his keyboard playing. But in this live performance, he's playing with a 4-piece band, himself included. So you actually get to see him play a little bit of keyboards and organ, and you say, oh, shit, he wasn't a bad keyboard player either. Kind of overlooked, because his focus was being the vocalist and writing the songs. And he's just got that earthy thing, it's the kind of music that would have a horn section behind it on albums. I don't have a lot of his albums. I have a couple things. But he's got that blues, R&B Ray Charles thing going on, which is in general not my music, but it's kind of like everybody has the exceptions to their main kind of music that they listen to, and they'll listen to one artist in one genre that is not at all their genre. And I don't know, over the years I've really become to appreciate, of course after he dies, Tony Ashton. Only lived to be 55. So I'm looking forward to reading this. This was meant to be the first of 3 books that Tony was going to write. But fortunately or unfortunately, he passed away before he could write the other 2 volumes. So I'm going to savor that. It's not a long book. I'm going to probably watch the DVD again. And I'm going to intentionally read it slowly because it's the kind of thing that you want to savor. Because honestly, you could probably get through it. I don't read fast. Most normal people, of which I am not one, could probably get through the book about 170 pages. Most normal people could probably get through the book. I like the inside cover though. In an evening or 2, but I intend to stretch it out at least to a month. So it's nice. It's a well-made. The other inside cover, just a very, very detailed drawing of this area in Switzerland. I don't know if it's true to life. I'm guessing it is true to life. You see the buildings in this area of Switzerland, which is where there were clubs and different bars and different restaurants where Tony and other musicians came and stayed and performed, pubs. There's also characters drawn in here like policemen and stuff like that. So I'm guessing, I think Tony did this art. I have to look at that. I know Tony was a painter also, so I'm guessing he did the art. There's so much detail. You could easily spend an hour just looking at the detail in here and reading all the little things written in there. So it's a well put together book, but not cheap. I didn't mean to go on this long, and I thought with the stack of half a dozen things that it would be short, so I'm sorry once again. But I don't know. Let's see how I feel. It might be a while before I come back on again. And I'm not too sure what else I have to talk about, so that's going to prevent me from making another video. So hope everybody's started off the new year very, very well. Better than I am, I hope. And, talk to you soon. Thanks for watching, and happy 2020, everyone.